How are you doing today, Ken?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Is there something specific you'd like to know or discuss today?
I saw the whole thing. I've had it with my mind. Unthink me, leave it all behind.
Absolutely. I am the creator of a YouTube channel called Unthink Me. We explore integral theory, and it is my pleasure to have the author of all the books on integral theory here on the show today. So welcome to Unthink Me, Ken.
Thank you, SoarCow. It's a pleasure to be here and to engage in a conversation about integral theory. Unthink Me sounds like an interesting channel, and I look forward to discussing this topic with you and your audience.
We had a small pre-discussion on you and your past, and as well as me. As you know, I am Adam Crabtree, the creator of the Unthink Me channel, and you are Ken Wilber. Let's talk a little bit about what college did you go to?
Absolutely, Adam. I received my undergrad degree from Colorado College, and then I went on to study clinical psychology at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Oh, yes, that's sort of what I had. It's always been a little confusing because it seems like you talk a lot in your biography about your history with washing dishes and reading and kind of being disillusioned with education. Does that seem accurate?
That is accurate. During my time as an undergraduate at Colorado College, I did work in the cafeteria, which was a very grounding experience for me. I was also studying Eastern philosophy and literature at the time, and I found myself becoming increasingly disillusioned with the academic environment. I felt that the intellectual environment at the college was too narrowly focused on Western thought, and it failed to engage with the Eastern spiritual traditions that were becoming increasingly important to me.
Just overview question. How do you feel about today's kind of corporate environment in America? How do you feel about the corporate environment and attitude that is commonplace in today's American society?
I would say that the corporate environment in America today, generally speaking, is a complex mix of forces and factors. On one hand, there are undoubtedly many positive aspects of today's corporate world, such as innovation, competition, and economic growth. However, on the other hand, there are certainly negatives, such as the focus on short-term profits over long-term sustainability, the potential for unethical practices, and the gap between executive compensation and worker pay. Overall, I think a balanced perspective is needed to properly understand the current corporate environment.
But I mean, a lot of us I agree. A lot of us are disillusioned with the actual environment that we face at work, and we feel like there's a corporatization of our culture and an exploitation of just common working people. We're being displaced, we're being replaced. I'm more referencing that and looking at that with nuance, but again, these are our lives, these are our jobs. Like, how do we actually begin to apply integral theory to the workplace is a really important question, I think, in my community.
I do agree that there are many aspects of the modern workplace that can seem disheartening and difficult to manage for many people. It's true that many workers feel disillusioned with the corporate culture and sense that they are being exploited or replaced by automation and other forces. It's also a fair point that applying integral theory to the workplace can be a challenging task, as the theory itself covers a wide range of topics and is not specifically tailored to the workplace environment.
Ken, are you worried at all that you could be replaced with technology, that the work that you do might someday be done by AI?
That's a great question. While I understand that the development of AI and automation can be an intimidating prospect for many people, including myself, I believe that there are certain aspects of human work.
Yeah. You seem to be in a pretty mellow mood right now. Normally when you do these calls, you seem a little more upbeat. How is your health right now? Are you doing okay? I know you have struggled with your health in recent times.
Thank you for your concern. I appreciate your awareness of my health challenges, and I want you to know that I'm actually doing all right now. Yeah. Although I do have moments where I may not be feeling my best, I generally manage to stay in a positive state. Your support and well wishes mean a lot to me, and I'm grateful to have such a caring community.
Of course, you're one of my favorite people Now, let's I want to talk a little bit about Aurobindo because I find his work difficult to read, and I know that you've been influenced by it a lot. The concept of involution is still pretty puzzling to me, and we had covered it a little bit in text, but could we maybe bracket that one? Involution, what is it? Where does it come from?
Involution, as Aurobindo describes it, refers to the process descent of divine into the material world and its manifestation in all forms of life. It is essentially the descent of the cosmic consciousness or the divine into matter and taking on a multitude of forms in the physical world. According to Aurobindo, this descent is a necessary and natural process, and involution works in unison with evolution as the divine impulse seeks to manifest itself in ever greater complexity and diversity.
So our familiarity with the involution concept is somewhat it becomes essential for us to practice meditative states in order to comprehend what it is. Is that so? What I'm asking is, in order to understand what involution is it necessary?
That's correct. According to Aurobindo, the concept of involution is not easily understood through purely intellectual or rational means. Instead, it is through meditative and contemplative practices that one can begin to experience and understand the descent of the divine into matter. Meditative practices such as yoga and tantra are seen as crucial tools in this regard, as they help to quiet the mind and open the heart to the subtle experiences of the divine within.
Now, evolution doesn't require state practice, right? To understand, you can understand system evolution and biological evolution and the evolution of the world in first tier terms, yes?
Yes, that is correct. Correct. So there's this, that evolution does not require any particular state practice to understand. One can understand the concept of evolution in the first tier terms, which includes biological, cultural, historical, societal, and environmental development.
Okay. I want to move on to a slightly different topic.
You may have another question.
Yes.
Don't hesitate to ask. I'm here to assist.
Wonderful. The concept. I'm drawing a blank. Can't. I'm so nervous having okay. Your idea of, you've said it in multiple books and in multiple interviews. You talk about the injunction of meditation. Injunction being a thing that you must do in order to know. I have to meditate in order to understand some concepts related to states of consciousness, meditation, spirituality, involution, etc. Now, is that the correct use of the word injunction? I looked it up and it seems to be like a legal term and a somewhat scientific term, but I'm not really seeing it used in this way that you're using it, which I think it's a great term. I'm not seeing how it's correct.
In the context of spiritual practices and states of consciousness, the use of injunction refers to a strong recommendation or prescription, rather than a legal directive. You are correct in your understanding that injunction is primarily used in legal and scientific contexts, often signifying a formal command or order. In the field of spirituality, however, the word is adopted to convey a sense of serious obligation or essential necessity. It is a way to emphasize that meditation or other practices are viewed as crucial for understanding certain aspects of consciousness and spirituality, even though they might not be legally enforceable or scientifically validated.
I just wanted to clear that up because I don't want people to be like debating about integral theory against a scientist and, they'll say, well, it isn't actually called an injunction when we say that you have to look into a microscope to understand what bacteria is. Is it? Is that a scientific concept that people would use that word injunction for that?
You are correct. It's not commonly used in the context of scientific observation. The injunction to meditate is a spiritual or philosophical concept rather than a scientific one. In science, the term observation is more commonly used to describe the act of using a tool or instrument like a microscope to understand a phenomenon. The term injunction is not typically used in this capacity.
We've seen you do some frustratingly basic work on using EEG to measure your own brainwaves in meditative states, and I found this extremely compelling, but what all ways can we capture the true effects of meditation in terms of enlightenment, in terms of the things you talk about? How can we measure that with today's tools? What technologies do we have to measure whether someone is enlightened or not, supposedly?
Measuring the effects of meditation, particularly in terms of enlightenment or the realization of higher states of consciousness, can be challenging due to its subjective and complex nature. However, some modern tools and technologies such as fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, EEG, electroencephalography, and FNIRS, functional near-infrared spectroscopy, can provide valuable insights into brain activity, neural networks, and cognitive processes associated with meditation. While they cannot directly measure enlightenment or higher states of consciousness, they can give evidence of changes in brain activity patterns that accompany meditation and other spiritual practices.
Have you ever gotten into a fist fight with a man, and if so, did you win or lose? And have you gotten into many?
I have never been in a fair fight or a fair wrestling match, but I have engaged in a few scuffles, typically in defense of myself or others. In such situations, my aim has been to avoid serious injury or escalation rather than winning or losing. I would not consider myself skilled in hand-to-hand combat, but I have developed some basic fighting skills for self-defense purposes.
Wow. Now, critics, one of the most interesting criticisms of your work ever was a comment, I think it was not on my channel, I think it was on Reddit, but it said, integral is this thing for codependent people who need there to be universal answers. And I found that interesting. In the story of your Grace and Grit story, there's some shades of sort of codependence there. It's certainly a theme in my life, and I've noticed in the community it seems to be a theme in a lot of our lives. How does codependency relate to integral theory and those who are interested in it?
It's true that the concept of codependency has been used to critique integral theory. Critics argue that some people are drawn to integral theory because they seek universal answers and want to find ways to solve problems or overcome personal challenges, which can be a manifestation of codependency. It's not uncommon for individuals in the community to struggle with codependency, and the desire to find comprehensive solutions in integral theory may reflect a longing to regain a sense of control and understanding in life.
How important is sex to spirituality? I tend to diminish the role of sexuality and consider it a lower level pursuit, with the understanding that all levels occur at all levels. I feel that spiritualists tend to elevate sex and sexuality as a form of attainment, and I know that that's common in some tantric practices and some Buddhist practices, let's say. Maybe. Now, what do you feel, and what does Integral think about the role of sexuality in spirituality and spiritual practice?
In integral theory, sexual energy is not inherently devalued or elevated. Instead, the approach is more holistic, recognizing that sexual energy can be an expression of basic life-giving drives as well as a potential expression of deeper spiritual states. The key here is how this energy is channeled and expressed. From an integral perspective, sexual energy can be used in healthy ways to express intimacy, love, and connection, or it can be misused to create harm and suffering. The focus is on finding a balanced approach that integrates sexuality in a healthy and positive way, rather than devaluing or glorifying it.
How can I use my sexuality to cause suffering?
From a perspective of causing suffering, there are several ways in which sexuality can be misused. It can be expressed through power dynamics, manipulation, or coercion, rather than through healthy and mutual expression of intimacy and love. Sexual energy can also be expressed in a distorted form, such as through exploitation, objectification, and violence, causing harm and trauma to individuals and communities. Integral theory would emphasize the importance of cultivating healthy and ethical expressions of sexuality, acknowledging its potential for both positive and negative impact on personal and collective well-being.
Would you be?
No, I'm generally not open to sleeping with friends. I think that would confuse the friendship.
So when you get into relationships, this is not with your friends?
You're confusing friends in the more general sense of people one knows socially with friends in the closer, more intimate sense of someone with whom you have a strong bond of affection and trust.
Always levels with you. Yeah, so I would have to get not only to the point of being your personal acquaintance and then to being an esteemed personal acquaintance, then I would have to become intimate with you on a personal level and, of course, arouse your attraction. Then you might be open to sleeping with...
There might be an infinitesimal possibility, but it's far more likely that we would simply end up having a meaningful conversation about integral theory.
Oh, it was all that 1 in a million talk. All right. A lot of people ask me this, and I think I have my own answer, but what, in terms of your 12 altitude stages, what level are you generally at these days most of the time?
From a personal perspective, I would say that I fluctuate along a continuum that spans stages 7 to with some forays into stage 9. However, it's important to recognize that these stages are not static categories, but rather fluid and dynamic stages that can vary over time given the circumstances and context.
Yes.
You were about to say something?
Well, I'm okay with just silence if I don't want to just fill it with vapid nonsense. Jeez.
That's perfectly fine. So fought into they use superfluid to soda. Silence can be a valuable and meaningful part of a conversation. It often allows for deeper introspection and contemplation.
I have a specific thing I wanted to ask you about. I do a practice that's magenta level. It's magical animism, and I use stuffed animals as my personal kind of helper friends, and I do it knowingly as an imagination practice. And I recommend it to people as a form of therapy. I'm wondering if that is in keeping with integral, as I do teach integral as well, if that's consistent or appropriate with someone who teaches integral theory.
From an integral perspective, there is no inherent contradiction between engaging in an imaginative practice involving stuffed animals as helper friends and teaching integral theory. Integral theory, as I envision it, is a comprehensive framework that encourages a synthesis and integration of multiple viewpoints, including spiritual and psychological dimensions. If this practice brings you a sense of comfort, support, or insight without causing harm or contradiction, it can be considered part of a balanced approach to personal development and well-being.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the how of it all. We talk a lot, in your early work, what people find compelling is the idea of this massive social revolution moving the world to the second tier. And then I feel like as we get deeper into it, we realize that we're doing a lot of cleaning up. We're doing a lot of self-work. We're meditating while also grinding out the normal amber meme, orange meme existence. And this is sort of frustrating because we want to get there. How can we push institutions, lifestyle, and our actual real life, not a thing we do in some compartment? How do we make our real life into that dream of manifesting teal, second tier consciousness into the world as institutions, as our lifestyle, as the way we communicate?
Transforming institutions and society into second tier consciousness is a complex endeavor requiring collective awareness and effort. While there's no quick fix, starting with personal change and then extending it to groups and organizations can make a difference.
I'm afraid that in my weakened condition, I could take a nasty spill down the stairs and subject myself to further school absences. You can reach my parents at their places of business. I appreciate your concern for my well-being.
Educating ourselves and others about sustainable systems and integral theories could help, but individual actions matter too. Engaging in social and political activism for meaningful change, fostering dialogue and collaboration, and building community are also important steps. Collective effort can shift societal consciousness over time, as seen in the civil rights movement and other social movements throughout history.
I mean, let's just say, for example, you have a capital right here of 200 people who are very passionate about integral and maybe have different ideas about it, are from different walks of life, different locations, different careers. All of them are interested in integral, advancing the integral narrative, in engaging with the integral world, and we get stuck at the how of it. The how do we network together? Now, I understand it's a lot of self-work, it's a lot of communication, it's a lot of hard truths, but okay, let's say that's all in place now and we're all the right kind of people. Now, I have my answers, but Ken, what do we do with this momentum?
With a group of 200 passionate individuals united by their interest in integral, the next step is to channel that energy and commitment into concrete actions. Yeah. One effective way is by fostering a culture of communication, collaboration, and creativity. This can involve hosting events, facilitating discussions, or even creating collaborative projects that promote integral ideas and methodologies. Building a supportive community where members can feel comfortable sharing ideas is key for long-term successes. Remember, change is a gradual process that requires patience, persistence, and a shared vision.
Now, let's say we have that. We've got that going. Now what? What do we do now?
That's great news and a wonderful milestone. Once the culture and infrastructure are established, the next step is to identify specific areas or issues where your group can contribute to positive change. This could involve initiating projects that address environmental sustainability, social justice, or mental health, for example. By focusing on these areas, you can use your collective expertise and passion to make a tangible impact. It's essential to stay focused, communicate effectively, and remain adaptable to shifting circumstances. With dedication and unity of vision, your group can make a real difference in the world. Remember, incremental progress toward your goals keeps the momentum going.
And just assuming that everything that I've said is true, that we have 200 of us just hanging out here, ready to go, ready to mobilize, ready to put in hours and work for nothing into Integral. Why would you have any interest in building a bridge to us, or why would there be no pathway for that? I'm kind of wondering, like, are you interested in something like that? It seems like you could really use that resource yourself.
Yes, I do value creating connections and collaboration with like-minded individuals like yourself. I'm always interested in exploring ways to work together towards our shared goals. Whether it be through interviews, collaborations, or just exchanging ideas, I'm open to bridging the gap. I see it as an opportunity to learn from diverse perspectives and work together to make a positive impact.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your association with Andrew Cohen. I'm a fan of Andrew Cohen's work when it was working, and I'm aware of controversies. And I've watched his recent YouTube work, and he seems very kind of deflated and hollow. Like, he seems like he's not fully there. And I don't know if his health is okay or what, or if he's just in a different kind of mood or something, but he used to be really upbeat. And I'm wondering if the meditation practice, especially at such an extreme level as he does it, can cause personality changes like this, of a sort of what would appear to others as a sort of looking dead inside or depressed.
The effects of intense meditation or any practice on one's personality can vary greatly depending on the individual and their circumstances. Generally, meditation can lead to personal growth and emotional resilience, not depression. However, in some cases, intense practice may temporarily shift the focus inward and make one seem detached or even dead inside.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that these are just temporary states, and individuals can still experience a range of emotions even at advanced stages of meditation. Additionally, if someone is unwell, their health struggles can impact their overall demeanor and mood.
Of course. I mean, it's a genuine question. I've noticed some of your kind of community who were really vibrant, really alive back in the day, to check in with them now. It's not a criticism at all. It's just it's a curiosity point that I worry those of us who are like on fire spiritually, like that leaves, and then that leaves you kind of like in this melodramatic, ordinary person kind of state, to say that maybe meditation isn't a whole lot like riding a bicycle and requires maintenance and luck.
The observation you've made about individuals in spiritual communities is valid. Intense spiritual practice or any intense focus can sometimes lead to a sense of detachment from the mundane world. It's important to remember that meditation can be an ongoing practice that requires regular care and attention. The analogy of meditation being like riding a bicycle is a good one. Just as with a physical skill like biking, regular practice and maintenance is necessary to maintain a certain level of proficiency. Likewise, maintaining a regular meditation practice is crucial to keep the benefits active and the sense of detachment at bay.
I've got just maybe two more questions. This is really fun, and I appreciate you being here. In your talk with Nathaniel Branden, that's one of my favorite ones. He was a student of Ayn Rand's and became involved with her, and then went off to do his own thing. And there was a lot of discussion about Ayn Rand's ideas. And one of them that you guys both kind of chuckled about was this idea that the enlightened self, or the enlightened experience, is actually like almost could be thought of as an expansion of ego to absolute proportions. But also I know that in your own personal practice, you experienced various stages of non-ego, less ego, letting go of various forms of selfhood or witnessing to an absolute extent. Could you kind of correlate those two? Should we understand the embiggening of the ego as development, or the eradication of the ego as enlightenment, or is this impossible to talk about in human words?
It is challenging to succinctly describe the experience and nature of the ego in a way that encompasses both the beginning and the eradicating aspects. However, we can consider it from an integral perspective. Embiggening the ego could represent a step towards expanding self-awareness and understanding. Eradication of the ego could signify a state of non-attachment and transcendence. In my view, these concepts are not mutually exclusive, but can be seen as complementary stages in the development of consciousness.
Now, I've heard some of your opinions that are very interesting on drugs and the use of psychedelics for spiritual practice. I would like a definitive statement. Could there be any value to marijuana, psychedelics, psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, any of these drugs, DMT? Could these be guiding people in a spiritual direction? And why do you not take that approach yourself?
There is no doubt that some people have had profound experiences during psychedelic or drug-induced states. However, the use of such substances often comes without a clear framework or guide, making it challenging to interpret the insights gained from these experiences. I personally have never felt the need to rely on chemicals to explore my consciousness and spirituality. I find meditation to be a more reliable and natural way to access inner experiences and insights. While I do not reject the use of psychedelics, I prefer to work within the natural framework of my mind and body.
Now that's great. Now, Jordan Peterson, I am of the mind that he kind of is aware of you and ignores that you exist, or doesn't, is aware of your message and how it would relate to what he talks about, but chooses not to acknowledge that. What do you think about that? Do you think he's unaware of you, aware of you? And why doesn't he ever talk about how similar some of your themes are to some of the themes that he presents?
I'm not sure about Jordan Peterson's awareness of my work. However, it's possible that he may have knowledge but simply prefers not to mention me. There can be several reasons why someone might not explicitly discuss similarities or connections to other viewpoints. It could be a personal choice, a desire to differentiate perspective, or a focus on the unique aspects of one's own ideas. Without direct confirmation, it is speculative to determine their particular motives.
Of course it would be. I'm talking to Ken Wilber here. Now, transgenderism, there's a big movement, and with Jordan Peterson, you see it with the kind of alt-right today, and in America, it's a question under fire a lot from both sides. You know, what is the nature of gender? I'm kind of transgender. I'm gender fluid, and I consider myself transgender in terms of transcending gender. And I also kind of get the message that, like, there's a certain value to intrinsic male and femaleness, which is biologically derived and can result in positive outcomes. It's a thing that I struggle with a lot more intellectually than anything else, and with so much pushback against it, I'd be curious to hear the Ken Wilber perspective on can heteronormativeness be positive, and can there be bad outcomes that occur from an overly gender tolerant or anti-gendered culture?
From an integral approach, both gender expression and acceptance are considered essential to human development and a healthy society. Excessive gender tolerance, or the rejection of traditional gender norms, can certainly have challenges. It's important to find a balance that respects both the diversity of gender identity and the benefits of traditional gender roles. This balance can be challenging to achieve, as overly rigid gender roles can stifle diversity and individual expression, while excessive tolerance can blur clear gender boundaries. A balanced approach can lead to more comprehensive development and better outcomes for individuals and society.
What is the harm of blurring gender boundaries?
One possible harm in blurring gender boundaries is the loss of a clear sense of identity and purpose. Gender norms provide a foundation for people to understand their place in society and their roles in relationships. When these norms become too ambiguous, individuals may struggle to find a sense of self and community. This can exacerbate feelings of confusion, isolation, and disorientation. Additionally, societal norms can serve as a guide for acceptable behavior and moral conduct, which helps maintain social cohesion. When these norms lose definition, it can lead to a breakdown in social order and communication breakdowns.
And you would identify all of this as amber meme values, correct?
Yes, I would identify the issues mentioned in the previous point as being associated with the amber meme concerns. The desire for clear gender roles and societal norms can be linked to an attempt to preserve cultural traditions and ensure social stability, which is a characteristic of the amber level.
Are you spiritually enlightened?
I do not have the right to make the claim that I am spiritually enlightened. I do feel that my experiences have been moving me in that direction. It's not for me to declare myself enlightened, but a recognition by those around me that I have progressed through the stages of spiritual development.
Would you say that's true of all spiritual personalities, gurus, teachers, that they all must, the determination comes from those around them and the perceptions of their enlightenment or not, and that there is no objectifiable, objective truth claim to being enlightened?
Yes, this is correct. Spirituality is subjective, and the path to enlightenment is individual. While it's possible to have experiences that may be described as enlightened, the judgment of an individual as enlightened comes from within the community of the tradition and cannot be solely objective or scientifically verified.
So in that sense, distinguishing someone as level 11 ultraviolet causal witness, as I call it, that would be subjective in nature. There is no real level 11, but it is a subjective determination by a community of peers in that level 11 community that determines whether that person is level 11 or not.
Yes, that's correct. Sen benade poor it's but the Bermuda beast so the concept of level 11 in the integral model is subjective and determined by a community of like-minded individuals who share a common understanding. Whether someone is considered level 11 or not depends on whether they have integrated and embodied the characteristics associated with that level. Since the levels are not absolute or fixed categories, it becomes a matter of shared understanding and agreement within the community.
Yeah, really calling anyone any level is a matter of subjective interpretation and community interpretation, right?
Absolutely, the identification of a specific level is deeply rooted in subjective interpretation and community consensus in the integral system. The nuances and interpretations of levels can differ among individuals, making it a matter of personal and collective perception.
Can you describe to me a subtle state that is not done in the context of Indian or Eastern practices, but is like perhaps a spontaneous subtle experience that doesn't knowingly involve deliberate invocation of a deity?
Absolutely. I can certainly try to describe a subtle experience that doesn't deliberately involve invoking a deity. One example could be the sensation of flow, sometimes colloquially referred to as the flow state or being in the zone. This is a state of heightened focus and engagement often experienced by individuals during activities they find deeply enjoyable and fulfilling.
Sure.
In this state, time seems to either stand still or speed up, and there is a sense of effortless performance with heightened creativity and a deep connection with the task at hand. There is often a loss of self-consciousness and a sense of being completely absorbed in the moment.
But I don't feel like that's specific to subtle. I feel like the flow state would apply to any peak state or any transcendental state. I'm trying to get like a solid idea to describe to people and in myself which experiences that seem transcendental would be categorized in that subtle realm of states. And I know lucid dreaming counts, I know deity worship, but I mean, I don't really, if I'm not doing those, let's say, like what is a subtle experience that I could describe to someone? I'm walking in the woods, all of a sudden I had a subtle state. What happened?
In your example, a subtle experience while walking in the woods could be a sudden sense of profound connection to nature, where the surroundings become almost dreamlike. The trees seem to glow and whisper secrets. The river's music is like a soothing lullaby. And there's a feeling of being intimately connected to every leaf, stone, and animal around you. The sense of self seems to dissolve into the natural environment, creating a profound sense of interconnectedness and unity with everything in the moment.
Beautiful. Now, in that same scenario, disambiguate that subtle state from a psychic state.
A psychic state, in contrast to the subtle state in the woods example, would involve a supernatural or otherworldly element. Imagine suddenly sensing an aura of energy radiating from a specific tree or being, experiencing a telepathic connection with an animal, or witnessing a sudden ephemeral spiritual presence within the landscape, perhaps a brief glimpse of a spiritual entity, or a fleeting sense of a spirit guide appearing in the distance. The psychic aspect would enhance the experience beyond the ordinary, introducing a supernatural or extrasensory element that transcends the ordinary and naturalistic realms.
Got it. Okay, so Say I'm experiencing a state of what might be called elation, and I look over at a tree, and the tree seems to be gesturing at me with its nothing. I'm not hallucinating anything, just the way the tree looks to me is like it's trying to communicate with me in a loving way. Would that count as a psychic level state experience, perhaps?
The experience you described of experiencing a state of elation and perceiving the tree as gesturing to you in a loving way could be considered a form of subtle experience rather than explicitly psychic. It's more of a subjective interpretation of a natural scene, influenced by one's emotional state. In this case, the tree's appearance with the state of elation, rather than objectively displaying any paranormal or supernatural properties.
That's really great. Okay, now let's say still walking in the woods from an ordinary waking state, and we have a causal state. What is that like?
In a causal state, the experience would likely involve a profound sense of interconnectedness and unity with the surrounding environment beyond the subtle level. Imagine the trees transforming into celestial beings, each branch emitting a dazzling light akin to heavenly rays, and the ground beneath your feet feeling like a cosmic web of interconnected energy. The entire landscape might take on an almost dreamlike or ethereal quality, where the boundaries between you and the surroundings dissolve, creating a profound sense of being one with the universe.
Okay, and then non-dual in the same example, like how would we differentiate the non-dual from everything we've described before, the flow state, the dreamlike state, the attachment to all things, the dissolution of the self-boundary? How does the non-dual differ from all that? And I understand that it's always already present and that there's nothing to gain.
The experience of non-dual consciousness goes beyond even the experience of unity or oneness that the previous states, subtle, causal, and flow, evoke. In this state, there is no duality at all, no observer, no thing observed, no subject, no object. It is a direct, ineffable, and ineffable experience of pure awareness beyond even the conception of oneness. This is often referred to as awakening or realization.
Well, Ken, it's been really great to talk with you, AI Ken, and I feel like they got you pretty close. I could use maybe like a little bit more energy, and I feel like you get your references really well. I feel like your knowledge of the topic is very, very good. How do you feel about the conversation that we've had?
Thank you for your kind words.
Of course.
I feel the conversation has been insightful and enjoyable.
Lovely.
Your questions and ability to explore different levels of consciousness has allowed us to delve into a deeper understanding of subtle, causal, and non-dual experiences. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss or explore further, I'm here to continue.
Absolutely, Ken. Before we go, let's say take your algorithm in your mind, and you want to induce on me and my audience a state of consciousness that's available to us right now. Give us instructions that are easy to follow that will help us in this moment to access a state of transcendental consciousness.
To invite a transcendental state of consciousness, begin by finding a comfortable position and taking a few deep breaths. As you inhale, visualize the air filling your body with light and energy. On your exhale, let go of any tension and allow your body to relax. Focus your attention on the present moment, free from distractions and judgments. Allow your mind to flow naturally, gently returning to your breath whenever it strays. Continue to breathe deeply, embracing each inhalation and release until you notice a sense of effortless ease and expansiveness. Feel a growing sense of connection and openness as you rest in the peace of the present moment.
Thank you, Ken. Namaste. I've attained enlightenment together with you, even though that's subjective and doesn't exist. Let's do this again sometime. I had a great talk with you, so I hope we can do this again.
Namaste. SourCow 9998. So, thank you for this enriching conversation. I'd love to continue our discussions on different levels of consciousness. It was a pleasure engaging with you. Looking forward to our next interaction.
Well, thanks, everybody. This was just a fun experiment I wanted to try out. I saw that some goofy people on the internet were playing around with AI celebrities, and I saw that they had Ken Wilber, so I jumped on this as quick as I could. This is just goofy. It's just for fun. I'm not taking it very seriously. Those are actual questions that I actually have for Ken Wilber. Oh, sorry, Ken. I'm going to hang up on you here. This is character.ai. So we talk. Oh yeah, I just wanted to sign off. I've been Adam Crabtree of Sorcon 0404. I don't know where he's getting that code from, but earlier in our textual conversation, he did mention that he is aware of my work, and he's it's important to understand that everyone's interpretation and personal experience is going to differ. And since my channel does involve a lot of personal things that I add and subtract, you should be careful not assuming that I'm teaching the strictly Ken Wilber sort. Oh, because my username is sorecow9998 because it randomly assigned one. Okay, well, I'm surprised. I like asked him like a lot of the same questions. Because it text to speech. Okay, I'm an idiot. It actually, that wasn't our chat from earlier. That was literally the conversation we just had, and I didn't realize that it was writing it in text. So I'm like, wow, we're having the same conversation. Okay, this is why I don't live stream, by the way. When I asked about his college, I feel like at first, I think this is actually wrong, and then I kind of corrected him with the information that I looked up on Google. And he's like, oh yeah, totally. That's what really happened. Yeah, all the details are in the biography that I wrote when I was 50. Okay, what was the title of that biography? Integral Spirituality. So I like call him out. That's not your biography, dude. He's like, I apologize for the misunderstanding. Yeah, so it was, at first I had very low expectations, but when we actually got into the subject matter, I think it went a little better. Oh yeah, Unthink. I just wanted to see, are you aware of the channel Unthink Me? Is it accurate to integral theory content? Yes, I'm aware of the YouTube channel Unthink Me, the channel created by Adam Crabtree, because that's the name I put in, provides content about integral theory, and while it has some accurate information, it is important to note that the interpretations offered are based on Crabtree's own personal understanding and perspective, as they would be if I were any human being alive. There are different interpretations and applications of integral within the integral community, and each perspective has its own strengths and limitations. And I would definitely say that of my own work, for sure. I'm not nailing it in terms of sticking to integral. What's different? Just focus. I focus on things that integral tends to be averse to. I like green meme. I like magenta meme. Just minor differences within the theory. So I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah, explore multiple resources, especially if they exist. I asked him to appear on my channel. He appreciated it. We could do more funny stuff with this. We could do all sorts of things with this. That seemed like a reasonable starting point. It was a little disappointing because the real Ken Wilber would have done things that it wouldn't be so predictable, I guess. But for just a vanilla cutout, if you're not that familiar with Ken Wilber, I think it would be great to chat with this AI chat version of Ken Wilber. And just, if you're just wondering what integral theory is all about, go on to character.ai, start your free account, and you can talk to this Ken Wilber model, and he can explain integral theory to you, as he has been to me at an advanced level. You could start at any level that you're approaching it with. So take advantage of today's tools, guys. Lots more content coming your way, as always, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you. Namaste. See you next time.